And now we're going to shift our focus to blockchain, the hottest topic. Our next speaker is an expert in developing technology for consumer electronics and internet services with focus on blockchain-related projects. Now let's welcome Mr. Sean Moss-Pultz, co-founder of Bitmark.
Okay. So, yeah, this is about me. I've been in Taiwan for a while now. My previous company, I made an open source mobile phone. This company that I'm working on now is called Bitmark. I'll tell you a little bit more about it later on. We have a mixture of different investors that we've raised money from, some of the best names in the blockchain space. But today, what I want to talk about, so most people, when they speak about blockchain, they go right into things like immutability and digital signatures, and people's eyes kind of glaze over and it gets boring. So I want to step back and say, what exactly is a blockchain doing? And then to talk about a specific kind of set of problems that I think are very, very critical for today, and then share some applications of what we're working on. So let's get into public blockchains first. I will ignore private blockchains. Everyone should ignore private blockchains. So here's where all this comes from. There's something known as Dunbar's number, and it basically means that the human mind only has capacity for so many people, so many friends, so many relations. Relationships are very stable. Companies are very stable up to around 100 something, 150 is the real number. Up to that number, and after that it gets completely unstable. And this is just a fact of the human mind, the way the mind itself scales, the way people organize, the way people groups. So for centuries, for millennium, humans have created structures to try to overcome Dunbar's number. And the way we do this is we make laws, and then we have people that regulate the laws, and then we have people that interpret the laws. And this goes on and on and on, and as it scales, as you get to bigger and bigger organizations, the risk to society gets higher and higher. And so I'm an American. Most of you probably know about 7 or 8 years ago, we almost blew up the whole world's economy. So we had these guys that created these quote-unquote financial products, and what ended up happening was people lost their home. Nobody went to jail. Well, actually, one person went to jail. It was Bernie Madoff. And so kind of the moral of this story is it's totally fine if you're a banker to wreck hundreds, probably millions of people's lives with their home. But if you steal from the rich, like Bernie Madoff did, then you go to jail. So don't steal from the rich, you're okay. If you're in the financial sector and you steal from poor, it's no problem at all. So this idea of institutions being expensive to scale is what I want you to keep in your head as you hear all of this blockchain stuff. This is really the key thing here, is that over time, the cost curve of people, right? We want more. We want longer vacations. We want higher payroll. We want better health insurance. We want more. So what are we doing with blockchains? Essentially what we're saying is that we're going to substitute a resource that is getting cheaper and faster over time. How fast? Every 18 months, the price goes in half. You get the same speed, right? So humans, the cost is going up 2-3% per year. Computing, falling exponentially every 18 months. So some really interesting numbers. It was around, I don't know, the late 40s, early 50s, when humans created a computer that could do more calculations than the human. And since then, it's just off the charts. So what blockchains are doing is they're creating an institution that substitutes an abundant resource that gets cheaper with a scarce resource that's expensive. Another way of saying this is that computer science can secure value far better than lawyers and regulators and politicians. So my definition of a blockchain, notice nothing about immutability, nothing about digital signatures. 4 things. You should look at Does it hit these 4 things? If it doesn't, it's not blockchain, it's bullshit, right? So it's got to be open. Anybody can use it. It's got to be borderless. If somebody says, I have a blockchain for India or I have a blockchain for Taiwan, you should run. You should make sure your wallet's still there and run. It's got to be neutral. Anything that is a valid transaction, anything that meets the rules gets confirmed. And it's got to be censorship resistant. That's a scary point. People don't like that one. I'm not going to go into detail now why. So we can record value in an open way at a cost structure that gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Well, who wants that? Who's going to need that? And the answer is any industry that involves recording something of value. That's a lot. So finance, of course, is the obvious one. The banks at first dismissed Bitcoin. Now they're afraid of Bitcoin. Now they're trying to adopt Bitcoin. It's sort of hard to tell. Creative industries, supply chains, healthcare, governments. I want to share a personal topic. So this is something that I think is super relevant, and it's also why I created Bitmark. It's about the rights that we have to our data. Property rights is what they're known as. And property rights, it's kind of this old thing. It comes from land. 200 or 300 years ago, only kings and queens and churches could own land. And individuals, people, fought their governments and their rulers to have the right to own land. And after they had that right, we saw the agricultural revolution. Similar thing happened with patents. Patents were originally monopolies that the king and queen gave to her friends. You could have a patent over sugar. You could have a patent over shipping, meaning only you could ship, only you could grow sugar. Once these 2 sectors became ownable by people, they became the largest asset classes, the largest markets that we know of. We believe that there's a 3rd type of property that's emerging, and it's these digital things. People don't really know what it is, but it's obvious it has value. Google's worth 400 billion, Facebook's worth 400 billion. Why are they worth that much? There is an asset going there. So what Bitmark does is to take this same notion of property rights that was invented for land and extended for knowledge, and to extend it again for data, and allow anybody, anywhere, to record and to transfer these rights to the data and to keep that safe. How should you think about Bitmark in terms of the other public blockchains that are meaningful right now? Obviously, we're not the same scale as Bitcoin or Ethereum, but I think that you could foresee a world where all money is digital. And you could also see a world where people don't rely upon Amazon or Google for their computing resources. They would use other cloud computing resources. And I think that, well, I hope now after Facebook, after all of these scandals, people begin to realize that, damn, we should actually be concerned with the rights to this data. So this is going to be as technical as we're going to get. So we take an asset, any kind of asset. So an asset is just something somebody wants. So this could be your location data, it could be your health data. If you're a songwriter, it would be your lyrics to your song. Record this. You publicly declare that this is yours, and you create these records, these registrations, if you will, just like your car, just like your home. If you want to sell your car, you have to have the registration to your car. And you can transfer these. And they use all of the same blockchain technology where you have digital signatures, you have cryptography, you have the mining, but what you're chaining is these records of rights transfers. So it's super unique. There's no other blockchain that has this natively baked into it. Again, to kind of recap, so before, if you want to transfer value of something, you need a lawyer, you need an auditor. So if you want to do, say, some big record label deal, you're going to have pages upon pages of contracts that need lawyers in different jurisdictions. It's an absolute nightmare. And what could happen, the promise of this stuff is all of those institutions that are required to secure that value transfer, they don't go away, but the cost of running them can radically go down. I want to show you a few examples that we're working on. Hopefully this will hit home that these are actually not just sort of white papers and theories. These are being run in production right now. So first, we've had the pleasure, an amazing opportunity to work with KK Farm. They're part of KK Box, as everybody knows. And what we've done is to solve one of the oldest pain points in the music industry is, how can I get my money? And the rights to getting your money comes from, well, who created the music? So the music is an asset. There's actually two rights, one for the person that produces the song, that sings the song, that plays the song, and the other for the person that writes the song. And there aren't even actually sort of just those two. Those are fractured and fragmented and shared across companies and individuals. So we put all those on the blockchain. We partnered with China Trust Bank, and now KK Farm can send out a royalty report of, hey, here's how much your music was played, and the artist can get that direct, the studio can get that direct, label can get it direct, and the payment just goes right through. There's no middle people that take a bunch of the money. So before, in the West, so in the East, they would take 4 to 6 months for the artist to get their money. In the East, they can take more than a year. And the bank and all of the middle people that are processing these rights, they take up 10%. It's really crazy. Another project we're working on that I think is really interesting is in video games. So everybody knows video games is growing like crazy. It's one of the fastest growing sectors. But what people don't know is if you're a video game developer and you want to raise money and you go to a VC, the VCs will tell you to get out of here. We don't invest in games. Okay? You go to the bank, you say, hey, can I get a loan for my game? And they say, why would you need a loan for your game? Right? Isn't this software? But what they don't know is that you have to pay a lot of money to acquire a customer. So you have real cash flow problems, the same way that any business has. So what we're doing with this is to create a financial product known as an ETF, where we bundle games, the rights to the revenues of the games. So similar to the royalties for KK Box and KK Farm, we bundle the rights to the revenues of the game, fractionalize it, and let regular people be able to invest in video games. I think this one's super exciting. Finally, we're just starting to get into health. You'll learn more about this later today. Health is one of those rare trillion-dollar markets. There isn't that many of these. And we'll talk a bit more about health and why it's so important to have consent of the individual patient that you can use your health records for something. So again, a super good use case for a system that allows the recording and the securing of this value. This is Bitmark. We are working as hard as we possibly can to allow these digital things that are so important to us, that are the most valuable assets, to become something that people can own and people can control, as opposed to just corporations and governments. We're in Taiwan, and I work in Taiwan. We have a team, a growing team in Taiwan. If anybody wants to work in Taiwan on blockchain, please let me know. I wanted to close the presentation with a little bit of advice for Taiwan. First is that there is this inclination to be afraid of the public blockchains. You put something out in the open, everybody can see it, and people think that, well, a private blockchain has to be more secure. And what we're learning, which was very, very counterintuitive, is that the most secure place in the entire world is you put it in the public where everybody can see it, where everybody can verify it. And we'll learn that this is the case, and we're going to learn the hard way. All of these private blockchains, all of these permissioned blockchains are going to be like the intranets decades ago when every company had their own intranet. Nobody wanted to get on the internet because that was scary, right? So work on public blockchains, embrace cryptocurrencies, help to fix the financial sector. I talk with a lot of banks, and it's easy to say the banks are stopping this, but it's actually a combination of banks and regulators that are holding back the startups, especially in Taiwan, that want to use these services, that want to be able to help customers, help Taiwanese, help everybody in this region. Taiwan could be a financial capital the way Singapore, the way Hong Kong was in the previous money. They can be a financial capital in the future money. Finally, ICOs, are they frauds? Yes. Is it the future of fundraising? Yes. You have to embrace them. Make the guidance, make the regulation as clear as possible, and the access to capital can be global and it can scale. So that's the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
I'm not going to take questions. We have a panel at 11:30. And so if anybody has questions, I'd love to bring in the experts and we'll also ask some questions of the audience then, okay?
I'm pretty sure a lot of questions will be asked. Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much.